Hey guys, it's Zach from Z.M.S.C Model Works, and welcome to another tutorial video. Now this is kind of in response to some recent photos that I posted of the Mercedes SL 300 Cabrio. I have it here. Now this was in question to the polishing job I did on it and how I got rid of all the orange peel, especially on a model and 1/16 scale. And as you can see just from the reflections alone, there's no orange peel and it's a nice high deep gloss. Now I explained the products that I used with it and whatnot, but I didn't really go into detail in the video and with the photos, and it's kind of hard to show in pictures. So this is a dedicated tutorial on how we go about polishing car bodies. You can do this also on a gloss black base for natural metal finishes, but it's more so kind of designed strictly around the automotive sector, kind of around cars and bikes and whatnot. Now I have to give a shout out here to a friend of mine, Carlos Starton, who basically gave me his methods in how he does his bikes, and I've kind of developed my own sort of way of doing it for car bodies and with a rotary tool, because he does his all by hand. So any of these methods here you can use by hand. You can use the polishing by hand and whatnot if that's how you feel comfortable with. If you don't have the the funds to either get a Dremel or a Proxxon, some sort of rotary tool. In any case, so these methods can be turned into hand polishing as well as rotary polishing or machine polishing here. So what we've got here is we've got a Nissan Skyline painted in Zero Paint's Top Secret Gold. This is the Top Secret Skyline. What we've already done here is we've gone over the body with some 3000, 4000, and 5000 grit sandings, just to kind of give it a nice matte finish. You can still see there's some high gloss here, but it's just a nice flat uniform surface. There's no orange peel, there's no pitting that we've got, so we've got a really nice base to work on here with the body. Now the method for putting on the gloss, so to speak, so that there's a base to everything. So a good primer layer is going to help your paint stick better. A good even paint coat will bring out the finish, whether that's going to be a shine or get your metallics to kind of pop. And then your gloss is really what's going to seal the deal, so to speak. Excuse me. Within regards to the finish. So, for instance, here I've kind of switched over from using the 2K clears to start using the Gravity 2K series here. So you get your clear, your activator, and your thinner. The way this was mixed was 3 parts of the clear and 1.5 parts of the activator put into the color cup or your mixing cup, whatever you choose, and then that was mixed thoroughly prior to adding in 1.5 parts of the thinner. Just that way the activator and the clear are mixed thoroughly, and it gets starts reacting, and then you have your thinner to go in and reduce the mixture. I've tried it that way and it seems to give me the best results. That's how I was recommended by Carlos. So with the results that I'm getting, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So 3 parts of the clear, 1.5 parts of the activator, mix it thoroughly in a cup or the color cup and the airbrush, and then 1.5 parts of the thinner, and Bob's your uncle. And then that is sprayed in a thin tack coat, and then we're going over it again after 5 minutes with a light, medium tack coat, and then that's given 5 minutes to dry, and then we're going over with a heavy mist, not so much a wet coat but a nice heavy coat, and then that's given 10 minutes to dry, and then we go over it finally with a final wet coat, a full blast wet coat, and then put aside in a dust-free area with lots of ventilation to keep the dust away, preferably in an area that's plus 20 degrees Celsius. That's kind of the best cure time, because this one was given 5 days to dry, and then that way the clear coat can degas a bit. It can also cure a lot harder and faster, so it just moves things along a lot quicker and gets you going in finished builds, rather than taking a month to let some enamel clears or lacquer clears to dry. Some of them don't even dry fully; they still stay quite soft, like the zeros. So that's where we were at, and then we went over it with the wet sanding, just to get all the orange peel and the pits and dust marks. That it does happen. You will get dust marks on here, but a quick wet sand with some finer grits will get rid of that. So that's preparation for the polishing. Now, to move on to the actual compounds that we're using, we have these 3 products here from Scholl Concepts. So we've got a heavy cutting S3 Gold XXL. This is a heavy cutting compound. This is kind of comparable to the Tamiya polishing compounds, the coarse. However, the pigments I find are a lot finer in this, and where you get more even distribution. It stays a little bit wetter longer. If you've ever used the Tamiya compounds, you'll note that as soon as you put it on, it'll dry quite quickly, and so you don't really have any time to rub it in, so you might have to do 2 or 3 applications, and then especially with the rotary, it just doesn't work at all. But with this, it stays a little bit wetter longer, so you can get more out of the compound, and you can polish it in a little bit better. So that's our first stage. Second stage is our S17 Plus, our paint renovator. This is a sort of a medium to fine cutting compound, so the pigmentation of the compound is a little bit finer. This will kind of prep it for the final stage. Just to get rid of all the little swirl marks and the holograms and the hazing, I find. The S3 does an excellent job of it, but if you're going on to some bigger things like a 1/12 or 1/16 scale, it does really make a difference to go ahead and use this S17 Plus. So then the final one is our S30 Plus. So this is a swirl remover. So any of the really fine scratch marks are going to get filled in here. They're also going to get buffed out, and then this will give you the depth to the shine. So 1 or 2 applications of this, depending on how you like it or how well you've gone with the first application. This will kind of bring the depth of the paint and the gloss, so that it'll actually give a really deep feel to the clear coat on there. As you can see here, they've also got some labeling on them. I've used it's like this colored vinyl tape. I got it at Michael's. It's pretty cheap. It's like $3 for these 6. And then this way, when I'm using the rotary heads, I've got them labeled here, so I don't mix up any of the compounds that could lead to unnecessary scratch marks in the process. So heavy cutting compound is going to be yellow, and then I've got the S17 with green and black for the S30. Now onto the rotary heads. For I've tried out a couple of them, and the first ones I tried out here were these yellow cotton heads. These are okay for some intermittent polishing. They are quite stiff and hard, so unless you really work them in, they tend to be quite coarse. So you've got to be careful in where you're using them. But that's just the case. These are kind of like an intermittent thing if you need a quick polish on your black base or something like that. Just note that they are not as fine as some of these other rotary head bits. So you've got the option of these yellow polishing wheels. Next up, I guess on this would be the second sort of stage, on the ones I've tried are these wool, or well, they're say cotton, but they're more of a really light wool. These guys are, you know, extremely soft, rotary heads. And the only problem I've found with these guys is they fall apart. They disintegrate quite quickly. So they'll leave a whole bunch of little, what I like to call mouse pubes, which are little fine twills of the cotton all over the place. But you know, if you're using this would be more excellent for like a wax job at the end, where you're going to blow off all of that that debris. This could also work in sort of a medium cut, or the S3, a heavy cut. Once you've used these though, they're kind of like a one and done use. So if you use it, you gotta throw it out, because what'll happen is because it's so soft, the compound will actually start to sit inside of the wheel down near the base of the shank, and then it just becomes quite hard, and it doesn't perform as well as like a fresh rotary wheel. So that's really the only downfall to these guys, is once you use them, you know, you got to throw them away, and then you also have to deal with all of the fibers that lie around everywhere. That, you know, I'm still finding stuff from, you know, work 2 months ago. But in any case, it's an option. It's there if you decide to use it. If not, if you have a well ventilated area that's, you know, has a lot of draw, you might be okay with you know, getting the fibers out of the way. But you know, I don't have that in my workshop, so that's kind of out of the grounds for me. And then the final ones here are these white soft polishing wheels. Now these are cotton as well, but they're not as fine as, you know, these yellow cotton pads. But if you can see here, they're like little twills of really soft cotton that have already been broken down, and it's just as soft as the other heads here. But the nice thing is that these are a lot more durable. I don't get as much of the fibers flying off of it when I'm using them. The really nice thing about these compared to the other ones is that you can wash them out. They're not going to disintegrate when you wash them, because they're these little, you know, tiny cotton twills that are being held in quite well. So I haven't had one of these disintegrate. I've done 2 bodies with, you know, with my my S3. I've done 2 bodies with it, and you can still see they're in great shape. The more you use it, the softer it's going to get, so the better it's going to perform. And you know, you dip this into water afterwards and wash it out, and give it a good high-speed spin to fly everything off, and you know, and then they're ready to go again, which is great because, you know, you don't have to keep going and buying a bunch of these polishing wheels. You know, you just set a couple of these aside, give them a color on it, and then just keep reusing it and cleaning it, and then you're good to go. So you're saving a little bit of money in the long run as well, by just purely having these as a reusable sort of thing. It's like cleaning out your sanding sticks after, right? You just, you know, clean out the sanding dust, and then you can go again with it. Same idea with these guys here. So you can get these guys on Amazon, or any sort of, you know, bulk item. They're the believe the Yasumi wheels, but any sort of white soft cotton rotary wheels with, I believe it's the 3/16 shank will work. Don't quote me on that though. I'm not 100% sure on the measurements. But anyways, so these are what we're going to be using today with our Dremel in this process. So a couple other things we're going to use are, I've got these guys here, which are the Tamiya polishing cloths for the Tamiya compound. So they're kind of labeled in the colors, the coarse, the medium, the fine, and the finish. But I've used them in order of the Scholl Concepts, so the heavy cut, the S17, and then the S30. So we've got these for our cleanup afterwards. So once we've used the rotary wheel, we'll go over it and wipe it off with the specific cloth. And then of course some paper towel or chem wipe. That's a little bit damp, you know, not soaking. Excuse me. Oh, chilly last night. You know, not damp, but not you know, like soaking wet. So you know, something in between that we can wipe off excess. We can wipe off the rotary tool. We can wipe off our hands. We can wipe off extra areas of the body just to clean it up. And yeah, so I've got here my my Dremel with the extension. It runs over to the machine over there, and then I've also got the chucked grip to it, so it's, you know, I can take up to, you know, super fine needle sizes with this. Get it past the stop. Yeah, so that'll fit our shanks no problem. And this is a little bit easier to to quick change the bits, I find. But that's what I'm using. I'm going to be using it on the lowest setting. Theirs is about 5,000 RPM, or I believe 500 RPM, one of the two. They don't give a really good reading for it. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start with our body and get it going. So we'll see you guys in a second. Alright, we're back. So we're going to start off with one of the most important things, and that's preparation of a workspace. If you have a dirty workspace with you know, dirt and dust and everything else, if you put your clean tools on that surface, it's going to pick up that debris and it's going to transfer it for when you go ahead and polish the model. And you don't really want to put that in there, because what'll happen is even like a small little piece of dirt, if it's hard enough, it'll almost act as a sandpaper rather than a polish, and it'll leave, you know, like scratch marks or dents. It might alter the smoothness of which the rotary tool move over the surface, and it might grab. So you want to keep a nice clean desk. So what I did was I rubbed my desk down with 99 IPA, and we've got a nice clean kind of wetted palette of paper towel. The reason for that is I've got little Q-tips here that I'm going to be using to apply the polish compound to the model, so that way, you know, I'm not contaminating anything else, and might lead to cross-linking between the different compounds. So we've got a nice kind of damp paper towel here to rest those on, and then to rest the machine on as well. So if there is any kind of dirt or dust that we picked up from the table, you know, we're not gonna have it on our tool. Our tool's gonna be clean at all times. That's the main thing, is just to maintain a nice clean surface and work area, to make sure that we don't pass on any of the dirt and debris on the desk to the model. So, as with most containers, we're going to give this a very thorough shake just to make sure, because the compound and its carrier, they will separate, and you'll get an inconsistent finish. So you want to make sure that we get it nice and shaken up. You know, turn it upside down the other way. Just a quick little shake. So I guess for the easiest thing here, we're going to start on, we're just going to do a couple of parts here and there, just to, you know, make the video a little bit shorter, so we're not going over the whole body. When we reach critical areas, then, you know, we'll go ahead and touch on those. Another thing, we've got some Tamiya 18mm tape. Now, the one thing that you'll notice is with any kind of rotary polishing, if you're not doing it by hand, you can eat through thin areas of the paint. What'll happen on a lot of the 2Ks, like the 2K clears or any other clear coats, as you can see here, this the A-pillar from the door frame is, I can see here and I can feel it. As you can see, it's a little bit raised. And so what the clear has done is actually draws away from that edge. So when you're wet sanding and when you're polishing, you want to make sure that you're not going anywhere near that edge. And sometimes mistakes can happen. You can do that, and it'll wear through down to the primer or the plastic. So to prevent that, we're actually going to take some Tamiya tape. We're going to de-tack it a bit, and then we're going to apply it right along the edge. Here. So what that'll do is that helps protect that edge from being worn down by, you know, the clear, the rotary machine. We'll do that on the other side as well. You know, and then we'll transfer the tape over to certain areas along edges or along trim pieces, just to help protect them, because when you're looking at a polish finish, most of the eye is going to be drawn to the big flat exposed surfaces. So you know, stuff like the roof and stuff like the hood and the trunk here. So we're going to try and protect all of these edges as much as possible, because it's a pain in the ass to go back and respray and recoat everything. So this just helps prevent all of that. So, you know, I've got our S3 that's shaken up here. We're going to kind of push the bottle a little bit to get some of the compound to the top. We're just going to whisk away a little bit here. A pea-sized drop for this sort of area with our Q-tip. And then what I'm doing is I'm just taking the compound and I'm distributing it evenly across the surface. Any of you detailed guys will know this, is when you prime your pad, you'll kind of move it around so that you don't get a big fling of material when you start up the tool. And now that we've got that kind of moved around, we're gonna kind of lightly, we're not pressing down into the surface, but we're allowing the Q-tip to just rest on top, and we're gonna kind of work in circles and semicircles, working our way up the piece just to get an even more even application of the compound. You want to kind of do this not in a fairly rapid manner, but you want to make sure you're taking your time with it, just so you get an even spread of all the material across the surface. Okay, so there we go. Now it's evenly distributed. We're going to take our Q-tip and put it down on our wet palette, so to speak, our wet paper towel. We're going to insert our first bit here. Just get all the cat hair off. So we've got it in the machine. We're going to turn to the lowest setting. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to work from the bottom to the top in slow motions, in a fairly rapid manner, just to spread it out more, and then we're gonna, go a little bit slower with it. So, have a look. I'm gonna turn to the side. Make sure we have a firm grip on the tool because we don't want it to slip at all if it does catch. Okay, so now I'm going to take the wet paper towel, I'm going to hold it tight just to clean off some of the excess from the rotary, and then we're going to work in the opposite direction. We're going to work down from the back of the roof to the front. And we're not putting a lot of pressure down on the rotary tool. We're just letting it sit on the surface, nice and light, to go ahead and clean up the rest of the compound here. And work in the opposite direction like I did before. And then work on the 45. Notice as I'm moving it, I'm not moving my wrist as much. I'm keeping the rotary bit on its flattest side. I'm moving nice and slow and evenly, kind of how you'd apply a paint coat. Okay, I'll go ahead and clean that off a bit. And we're taking the tool, we're resting it down on our wet palette here. And then as you can see, we'll go ahead and tear off our tape, keep it off to the side in a nice clean area. Normally what I'll do is I'll keep it on the back of my glove where I know it's not been touching anything, because we can reuse it because it's already been detacked. We know it's in a, we don't have to waste tape. So just grab. Now I have the polishing cloths draped over my shoulder, so they're not resting on anything. And we're just going to find a clean spot, and then we're going to go ahead and wipe down the surface. Constantly move to a new spot, because you've already polished it, you don't need to polish it further. To a new area. Alright. And there you go. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer. Right? So there we go. So that's a nice non-orange peeled finish. You can see the flake coming through on the paint and the shine. And it might not look as good to yours just because of the light. It's a little bit bright, but I'm looking at it in the reflection, and I am seeing next to no orange peel, no nothing, no dust marks. It's a nice clear, even finish. Right? Now you might notice here on the inside of the seam, these are all getting painted black, so I'm not worried about the edges on these ones too much, but you can see there's a little bit of a buildup of the compound. And harkening back to the cross-contamination again, we want to try and limit that as much as possible. So I'm kind of biting the end of a Q-tip a little bit to make a nice little flat spade, and I'm going to kind of run it down that area that we had some buildup. I'm going to put it into the seam here. You can see, wipe it off on the back of my hand. And there we go. So as you can see, that's already a first, that's one step. So if you don't want the shine to get as glossy as this, if you want to do one or two applications of the S3, then you're more than happy to. But we're going for a nice deep, like, showroom finish on this guy. So we'll just do another coat of the S3. We'll do another application, and then we'll move on to the S17 Plus. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second application, and then we'll come back for the S17. Okay, so we've finished with our second coat on our S3 Gold XXL. Now these guys, you can get them in 1 kilogram of 500 gram containers. These are the 250 size, so they're about the same sizes of 1/24 scale car. These are perfect for, you know, doing cars and bikes in our hobby. I don't even think I've used maybe up to, you know, that much of the bottle yet. So these will last you quite a while, unless you're doing a lot of car bodies and you're doing real life stuff. Then you might need to go for the 500-gram containers, but these guys will do you just fine. So, anyways, and again, we're keeping our work area clean and avoiding cross-contamination of compounds and dirt and dust. So we've got our machine resting on top of the wet cloth, and we've also got our cotton swabs there as well as our little pick that we use to get out stuff from the panel lines and whatnot to prevent it being lifted back up and into the polishing process. So we'll go ahead and move on to the S17 Plus now. Again, with these, give them a really, really good shake to make sure you've got all of the compound and the carrier mixed thoroughly to prevent it from you know, separating and then getting an inconsistent polish. So we're going to take off our wheel here. I've got a little stand that I put paintbrushes in, but they also have holes. It keeps these guys off of the ground and keeps them out of, you know, dirt and debris on the normal hobby table. So that's kind of a thing you want to keep note of and keep doing, is just to make sure it's out of the way and not getting dirty even when you're not using it. So we're going to head and move on to our S17 Plus now. Should put the bit in. And as you can see here, this one's kind of dyed it purple a bit. That's none of the compound that's there. That's just the dye in the compound. But again, it just shows you can keep reusing these things over and over, and that's the great part of it, is that it allows you to keep reusing something. It makes it last a lot longer, puts your money a lot farther. I think it needs to be shaken a little bit more. Okay. So we're going to grab a brand new I'm kind of bubbled up a little bit. We can set back a little bit more. And so again, the S3, doing the same thing with the S17. We're evenly distributing the compound. Not too much, but not too little that we're going to go dry. And then the same thing, we're going to go ahead and apply this and even it across the entire surface of the paint, or sorry, the model. Okay, back down on our wet palette. Put this one off to the side. Now, a thing to note is using a rotary, it does get a little bit messy. As you can see here, there's a little bit of flecking from the compounds. That's why you want to kind of do the whole body in one compound before you move on. But just to go ahead and show you how that works on just a small panel, we're just doing one at a time. But if you're using too much compound and it's flying everywhere, that's when you need to know to reduce the amount that you're actually putting on. You know, and then if your polishing wheel is grabbing a bit, then obviously you're using too little. So you'll just a little for this area, probably a 2 by 2 inch area. You're probably using about a pea-sized drop. So that's kind of the ratio you want to use. So we'll go ahead and turn our Dremel on here. Same process as before. You know, we're working in a nice quick passes from top to bottom, or bottom to top. And clean that up a bit. Just going in the garbage. So that's been on the floor. So I brought out extra ones. Again. Alright, now we're going to go for our slow passes. Notice how I'm not stopping at the edge, I'm going over a bit into the tape, just so that I can bring any of that excess compound that's sitting in there out of the way to the edge as much as possible. Again, we're going to go from opposite direction. Just going to try and get the edge in here to clean up that seam a bit. And then diagonally. So it's the same way as wet sanding. You don't just sand in one direction. You always sand across and diagonal too to get the most cut, and also make sure you're not creating grooves and valleys for all the compound or the sanding dust to sit in. So it's the same thing with compounds. You want to work not just in one direction but in multiple directions, just so that you get the best cutting and the best cut and polish in each direction, so you don't get these little like streak marks or hidden sanding marks. So again, we're going to take our microfiber cloth, fresh one, clean, and we're just going to polish out and wipe away all of the excess polishing compound from the surface. We don't need to press down on it. Again, we're just doing a light clockwise and counterclockwise and wipes and everything else, just to make sure we have a nice clean fresh surface. Okay. Putting that back over my shoulder, and there we go. There, as you can see, that's 2 applications of our S3. And then 1 application of our S17 Plus. So as you can see there, nice, clear, clean finish on that. We have some tide marks there from the compound, but that's not a problem. So you can see now how the depth of the paint is really coming into play here. It's giving us a nice color tone, and the metallic looks really, really deep and fresh. We don't have any of that orange peel that goes on with some people's bills, and that drives me nuts. Because you can just see the ripples when you're shining a light across it, but here you can see that's just the curvature of the roof, but there's no wobbling and distortion of the clear coat at all. So again, we're going to take off our tape, put it on the back of our glove, make sure and then we'll take our toothpick again and the flat side, take out all of the extra compound, making sure we've got everything, just looking at it a little bit closer, just to make sure we've got everything out of the panel lines, and it's not going to touch any other part of the any other compounds and whatnot. So I'm just going to take, I got a little bit of water with some detergent in it. I'm just going to freshen that up a bit so that it's stays damp and I can clean my tools off quickly. So there we go. So that's after the S17. And again, you can just leave after the S3. We could have done 2 applications of the S3 and left it. But if you really want to get that deep shine, that's 1 application of the S17 plus. We're probably just going to leave the S17. We're not going to do a second coat of it. We'll move on to the S30, and then we'll go from there. So reapply this, and then prep up for the S30. Alright, so moving on now. We've got the certain panel that we're going to be doing taped up. We've got our S30 out. I'm going to mix it up real good. I'm going to take a fresh cotton stick, kind of press the bottle slightly to bring it to the surface, take a little wick of it, and then again, I'm going to do little random drops all over the surface. And we'll go ahead and start working that in. If we've got a build up in one area, we can always wick it up and move it to an area that doesn't have as much. Spread it out a little bit more. Okay, satisfied with that. And then same process, working from the top, or bottom to the top, switch over to the 90, bottom to top, 45, and then we're coming down, top to bottom, and then top to bottom. Again, we're not pushing down on the tool, we're not pushing it into the surface, we're just letting it sit on top so it still is able to spin freely. and then top down. Setting it back down on our pallet. Get our final cloth out here. Getting it away from the edges. To a clean spot. And for our final reveal, just take these off. The excess around the edges there. And there we go. And there you go. And that's after the S30. And that is a deep, deep, deep shine going on there now. You can see the so yeah, so there you go, guys. That's that's basics on how to use the Scholl Concepts polishing compounds on the car bodies. Taking care to protect our edges, working smoothly and consistently, and that'll get you your nice, deep, deep shine going on with a lot of surfaces. So, hope that helps, and hope you guys learned something from that. If you got any questions, ask down in the comments. Shoot me an email or go onto the Facebook page and let me know what you think. I'll post the links to the Canadian sites anyways for the Rotary Head on Amazon, and then as well you can get the Scholl Concepts stuff at either Amazon, eBay, or CarPro USA does a really quick and easy job of sending you all the compounds at quite good prices with shipping as well. So I think we'll, if you want to keep, this is basic here, you can go ahead and start using Carnauba waxes or anything else like that if you want. But if you're, satisfied, done, you think, hey, I can go and do that, you guys can stop watching here. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go ahead and switch over to a separate bit that I have. Put that one on nice and tight. God damn. There we go. Put that one out of the way. And move on to this head here. Now this is my waxing head. So I'm looking forward to trying out some of the Scholl Concepts liquid waxes. You can use a basic like solid Carnauba waxes as well. But what I have on hand at the moment is the Tamiya liquid wax, which is this stuff here. It says it comes with an applicator. It's the second one down from that, but it really doesn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish taping that up. Now we're back onto the waxes, but we still want to be careful of our edges to make sure there's no excessive heat going on. That's why you want to kind of keep a light pressure on the tool, because heat buildup is going to wear down the paint a lot faster. It's also going to alter the way that the compound actually works on the model surface, which can be a detriment. It can actually heat up the clear coat and basically make it look like it's warped, like some of those old Revell car windows, and you don't want that. So working smoothly and lightly will get you a better result than, you know, going at it full bore. Now to apply the wax, little wax goes a long way, obviously. For that we've got you know, like an eyeglass cleaning cloth. These ones are super fine, really nice for putting these you know, these liquid waxes or even the Carnauba waxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wax here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit better. We're just going to hold the tip, give it a good shake. And a little bit will pop out on the top. Basically, we're going to start from the middle of the car panel, and we're going to work in nice little circles. The reason we're working in nice tight circles is to make sure if there's any sort of really small, like if you were looking at this with a microscope, you'd see little small tiny scratches, and that's what the wax is there for, is to build up and fill those. Like Carnauba wax does a lot better job, but on full-size cars or large-size you know, cars and whatnot. But we're just gonna, you know, do the same, keep our application consistent no matter what we're doing. Okay, so you can see it's a little bit hazy there, and we're just going to leave that sit for about 5-6 minutes, let it dry. Alright, now that's been given about 5 minutes to kind of dry, just a little hazy. What we've gone ahead and done is we've turned up the setting from 5 to 10 on the Dremel. I have a 4000, so just put it up the next speed so we can quickly kind of buff it off. Then we've got our new clean head on here. And we're going to work nice and quickly on this one. Not staying in one spot for too long. And there we go. One and done. And I don't know if you can see, but the wax kind of really brings out the clarity in the clear. Helps out quite a bit. So, anyways. Now, yeah, and that should be it. Perfect. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.